What's going on YouTube? So the Toyota Land Cruiser is back, but things are going to be very different this time around. Of course, it's still rugged and tough like any model wearing Toyota's oldest nameplate has to be. But it's now a mid-size SUV instead of full-size. A turbo 4-cylinder hybrid system replaces the old V8, and perhaps most exciting, the old $87,000 price tag has been slashed to the mid $50,000 range. So is this the ultimate off-road SUV? Let's take a first look and find out. Now the first place we've got to start off with is with this exterior design. Guys, look at this. This thing looks tougher than military boot camp. It has a nice, rugged, boxy shape to this that really very much harkens back to the heritage of the Land Cruiser lineup. That's going to be especially the case when we're talking about this trim level we have here. So this is known as the 1958. As you'd expect, that means it's being inspired by that model of the Land Cruiser with certain details. You've got that signature heritage grille right here in the front. On this model, you're going to be using a lot of really rugged looking black moldings through here. So all the front, all through here, and over into this section are all going to be in the rugged matte black plastic. The big thing that's really going to designate the 1958 from the traditional trim level is going to be this headlight unit right here. So this has the signature round shaped headlights. The other version is actually going to come with a square headlight instead, giving you kind of a different flavor depending on which model you choose. As you can see, nice LED with all the different units. You have your LED turn signal off here to the side, and then down below you'll have round fog lights on this model, again square on the other model. Now you heard me say in the introduction that this is now a mid-size SUV versus a full-size SUV. One of the biggest places you're going to notice that is the fact that it's actually 4.4 inches narrower than the previous 200 series Land Cruiser that was in the US. That of course is going to make things more maneuverable off-road. Now as far as ground clearance, you're going to be looking at 8.7 inches of ground clearance, and very importantly is the fact that you have available real metal skid plates for all those situations you might get yourself in, and you also have rock rails along the side. Let's quickly talk about the wheels as well. You've got 18 and 20-inch alloy options. The 1958 is going to come with the 18-inch gray finished alloy wheel. Of course, you've got the really rugged wheel arches that go around this area with the flared fenders. And then coming up here to the mirrors, really nice look to these. As you can see, nice, tall, squared off shape. A gloss black finish on board, and then we have the LED turn signal indicator on the side and blind spot monitoring built in.
Now here at the side, you're once again going to see that squared off profile. It looks very similar to that all-new upcoming Lexus GX model, and honestly it was inspired by a lot of the Land Cruisers of past, the 50s and 60s generations, or maybe a slab of concrete. It's very square in terms of the overall design, but I love the way it looks here in person. Now I do want to point out a few of the really cool features that you can get on this new Land Cruiser. First of all, you can get a two-tone roof option. I do not believe that's offered on the 1958 though. And as far as other design elements, we have blacked out door handles as well as squared off windows in the back. Now, as far as your length is concerned, you're probably curious about this because this is now a mid-size SUV. It's 193.7 inches long, which is about 1.7 inches less than the previous Land Cruiser 200 series. Now, if we head around to the rear design of this all-new Land Cruiser, we're going to once again see a very boxy and rugged shape take place. Americans love boxy SUVs, so I know this is going to be a hit straight from the start because of the way this thing looks. Now, we have a big spoiler up top, an exposed rear wiper. Going through here, we have our Toyota spelled out across the back, once again throwing to that heritage of the Land Cruiser. And then if we check out our taillights are going to be a full LED design, even here on the base 1958 model. All of your accenting, you have your turn signal and brake light as well. And then dropping down to this lower area, very beefy plastic going on here. Additionally, we're going to have a 6,000 pound tow rating, which is worth noting. It's about 2,000 pounds less than that all-new upcoming Lexus GX. And let's talk safety for the all-new Land Cruiser. Toyota's always good about including their safety systems, and that's going to be the case for this model as well. Safety Sense 3.0 is standard across the board, so that means all 4 of your active safety features will be standard equipment. But guys, there's a really cool interior on the inside, so let's check that out. And
If you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
Now let's go ahead and check out the interior. So like we were talking about with the exterior, this is the 1958 trim level. That means this is the base model. This is the one that's going to be available to you guys in the mid $50,000 price point. So let's see what we get inside the cabin. First of all, we'll talk about our seats. So as you can see, we do have a cloth seat. I think this is a really cool design. It's kind of retro to old school cloth seats. Good texture to it as well. It is going to be manually adjusting the traditional Land Cruiser base trim and the top end. First edition will have power seats instead. So keep that in mind if that's something that you are going to want in your vehicle. But let's go ahead and climb inside. Let's look at the rest of the materials inside of this model. So over here on our door trim, as well as the upper part of the door trim, this is all going to be a hard touch plastic. Going to the upper part here, we're going to have a padded plastic through here with a nice texture. Going to be hard touch through the center section. Land Cruiser is going to be embedded into the plastic itself. As we go down below, of course, you're going to find mostly hard touch plastics through here as well, but everything does feel nice and solid, even on this model, which is pre-production, of course, because this is a very early first look at this model. Now, we can't turn this on or anything because we're just taking a first look in a studio setting, but we do have all the electronics and stuff booted up. So let's take a look at our gauge cluster first of all. So you'll notice on our gauge cluster, we have a display right there. So you're going to have standard digital gauges on all models. You've got some more, not analog quite, but accenting gauges on both sides of the gauge cluster itself. And then moving back to the steering wheel, I love how they've really just kind of kept these design elements the same from the outside to the inside. Just has that nice, chunky, meaty look, and then that traditional Toyota branding. Wheel itself is going to be manual tilt and telescoping. And then steering wheel heating is going to be available on the other trim levels. Let's take a look at interior storage. As you can see, really generously sized center console storage here. Nice cup holders, a big storage cubby up here in the front. Nice meaty shifter as well in this area. Of course, like I said, you can't put it in drive or reverse or anything like that on this model. But you do actually have an available trail camera and 360 system on the other trim levels. Of course, back here and up here, it's going to be really the main area where you make controls for off-road capability. So this is where you can lock your center and rear differentials, change your four-wheel drive system. You also have your drive mode select right there with that big knob. Now, also in this area, we have our climate controls. As you can see, this is a traditional Toyota setup, nice and easy to understand. You have physical buttons here for all the different climate settings. We also do have heated seats even on this 1958, which is the base model. Now, one thing you will notice different about the 1958 from the other versions is the fact that we have the 8-inch display. This is the smaller infotainment screen, and Toyota's kind of inserted in some piano black bezels along the side there to blend it in a little bit better, but obviously you are going to get a larger 12.3-inch display inside of that housing if you choose one of the upper trim levels. And of course, it's going to have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as well. Now, here's the volume knob. You've got a couple different sound systems, actually 3 different sound systems, 6, 8, and 10 speakers. You are going to have the 6-speaker version here with this base model. Up top, you've got the auto dimming mirror with the HomeLink universal remotes. And of course, you're not going to find a sunroof on this example.
Now, sitting here in the rear seat of the all-new Land Cruiser, this, of course, is now smaller than the previous Land Cruiser was, but honestly, the rear seat of that previous Land Cruiser 200 series was not really that spacious, so I don't think you're going to notice much of a space difference. We don't have official measurements from Toyota at this time. That, of course, will come later, but I'm sitting at about, I'd say, 7 or 8 inches of knee space with the seat adjusted to Drew. My feet can also easily slide up underneath the seat, so I'm quite comfortable back here in the all-new Land Cruiser. Now, as far as features are concerned, here in the center we are going to have vents. That will be standard equipment on every single model because we are in the base version of the Land Cruiser. Dropping below that, we have a 12-volt outlet as well as 2 charging USB-C ports. We also have a drop-down center armrest. If you take a look at the door trim, it is going to be made of hard touch materials throughout pretty much all of it. Do keep in mind though that everything does feel very solid in here. We also do have some bottle storage in the very bottom. We are not quite sure just yet if they will offer heated or ventilated rear seats. Hopefully we'll be able to provide that information to you at a later date. Now let's check out the cargo area. A similar story is going to take place when it comes to this area as well. One of the things I'm very happy to see is that we do have these separately popping rear glass. I know a lot of you guys really like that feature. At least here on the 1958 version of the Land Cruiser, we're going to have a manually opening tailgate. And then as far as the space is concerned back here, once more, we don't have the official specs from Toyota just yet. That will be coming at a later date. The previous Land Cruiser 200 series was about 81.7 cubic feet. Looking at it here in person, I don't think we're going to have much less space than that. That's for sure. Now, as far as in general, the space back here, we do have a very squared off look to it back here. One of the things that I do want to point out is this 1958 version does not have a third row. So do keep that in mind. That will be different from the current Land Cruiser. Now, if we want to fold the seats down, it's going to be 60-40 split folding. And now that I've folded it down, you can see that there is a slight hump, but it's not a big one at all. So it's really not going to bother you in the daily. We have a nice cargo cover up top. Additionally, off to the side, we have a 2400 watt AC inverter. And then we have a little bit of underfloor storage going on here on this 1958 model.
Like I said at the beginning, this new generation of Land Cruiser really is a big departure from the previous 200 series we had in the US. One of the biggest areas of departure is, of course, what's under the hood. You heard me say that this is now using a 4-cylinder hybrid system. This is Toyota's iForce Max hybrid setup, which combines a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with a 48 horsepower electric motor and a 1.87 kilowatt hour nickel hydride battery pack. All together, you're going to be looking at a total system output of 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque. So yes, that is going to be less horsepower, 55 less horsepower than the outgoing V8 model, but you're looking at 64 pound-feet more torque. I think that's really the biggest takeaway. And then, of course, it is a hybrid system at the end of the day, so I'm believing that we will certainly see quite a bit of improvement over the previous model, which I think was like 13 miles per gallon. I think we can achieve more than that, although we don't have any official EPA rating at this time. Now, as far as the other elements of the powertrain, you're going to be looking at an 8-speed automatic transmission. Of course, you'll have full-time 4-wheel drive, and this is also going to be coming with a center locking differential, a rear locking differential, and a 2-speed transfer case. Additionally, just as you'd expect with any off-road focused Toyota, you have crawl control and you have that multi-terrain select controller, which I was showing you guys on the interior section.
And finally, pricing and availability for this all-new Land Cruiser. Well, you heard Drew say it at the very beginning. This is going to have a lot more of an affordable price tag than the previous 200 series Land Cruiser because we are starting in the mid $50,000 price point for this. Now, Toyota has not released official pricing for all the different trim levels, but we can assume since this is the base model, this will be about $55,000, and then we will go up from there depending on what trim level you choose. Now, as far as availability, Toyota says these will begin in spring 2024, so you're not going to have to wait too much longer, about 6 more months if you want one of these Land Cruiser models. But of course, if you enjoyed watching this detailed first look review of the all-new 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser, we would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you help us get invited to events like this where we can come out to Salt Lake City and see this all-new Land Cruiser and get that footage for you to see and make some educated purchasing decisions. If you haven't had the chance to check out our TikTok and Instagram pages as well as our all-new website, please go ahead and do that as well. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.